Hello everyone, my name is Sandeep Yadav. I am Prime Minister's Research Fellow at IIT Bombay. I am teaching you this course, that is a engineering economics course, an audit course of the institute. Now, these are the things that I am going to cover in this course. 8 topics. We'll start with the introduction and the basics of engineering economics, the value of money with time, and what is the depreciation. And to calculate all these depreciation and the time values, we need some formulas, and these formulas will be like interest rates, discount rates. Then I will, in the fourth lecture, I will tell you the cash flows and the life cycle cost. And in the fifth lecture, I will explain the how financing is done and what are the different factors that should be considered in the financing part. Sixth lecture will be based on the, after doing all these learning all these basic things, then we can do a several type of analysis like sensitivity, uncertainty, and risk analysis. And in the seventh lecture, economic case study and will be done with the example. And finally we will do some numerical related to this subject. Let's start with the introduction and basics of economics. So let me start with the introduction. So, the aim of this course is to learn about the basics of economics related to engineering to take economically sound decisions. So, what we understood from this sentence is that for having a clear-cut understanding of economics and related to engineering, we need such type of course to be done. And to understand the depth knowledge and value engineering and the cash flows and the different technical terms, these are the objectives of this course. And finally, how the value of depreciation, how the depreciation methods work. Suppose you have purchased a mobile phone today or this year, but you're selling it at after 2 or 3 years, then its value is getting decreased. Why so? Because it is getting depreciated. But as you see, no manufacturing cost is being depreciated, no other costs are being depreciated, but the only the value of that product is getting decreased, and these things are called depreciation. Now, moving forward, need and importance of for the study of the subject. To get a sound knowledge about economics and cost analysis in current scenario. Also, it will be very much helpful in if they are interested in doing research. Suppose you are doing interested in doing any research or you are doing any project. If you are doing an economic analysis, that will add up a value in your project work. Also, if you will see an industrial connectivity or latest development point of view, it will give us the knowledge about the replacement of product and the machineries in the industries. After this doing this course, we can say what machinery needs to be changed at what time and what is it should be purchased or not. Now moving forward, what is engineering economics? In this lecture, I will discuss the elements of economics and the interaction between the various components. This will be followed by an analysis and the different we will solve two problems related to some concept that I will teach, and later on we will do some analysis based on that examples. Now, engineering economics deals with the method that enables one to take economic decisions towards minimizing cost or maximizing benefits to the organization. Now, what we learn from this is that to increase the value of the product, we have two things. Either we have to minimize the cost Either we have to maximize the benefits, or in other words, we can say it can be defined as a set. Engineering economics can be defined as a set of principles, concepts, techniques, and the methods by which alternative within a project can be compared and evaluated for the best monetary return. Suppose we are doing a project and we have to do economic analysis, then there will be several options available that we have to consider, and for several consideration we have to choose the best possible uh, options that will give us the best monetary result. Now let's discuss the flow in the engineering economics. In any engineering economic basic model, there are two things. One is the business, second is the household. So if we see, businesses need land, labor, capital. These are like economic resources, and these economic resources are provided by the households, because households are having that, and in return of that economic resources, business organizations pays some payments for these resources like rents, wages or salaries, and interest and profits in return of that land, labor and capital. And after having these land, labor and capital, businesses produces some goods or some services that will be conveyed to the household, and out of this for making these goods or making these services to the household, they will charge something, and then the household have to make some payments for the consumer goods and services. This is a typical simple flow in engineering economics, or we can say flow of goods, services and money payments in a simple economic model works. Now let's move to the law of supply and demand. And an interesting aspect of economy is that the demand and supply of the products are interdependent, and they are sensitive with respect to price of that product and the quantity of that product. And these interrelationship between all these four things are shown in the figure 1.2. As we see in this figure, when there is a decrease in the price of the product, as we see, decrease in the price of the product, then the demand of the product increases. How can we say that this graph shows a increasing pattern? And when the price of the product increases, the supply of the product is decreases, as this is a decreasing graph. And what are the factors that will affect the supply and demand? These are income of the people. Let's start with the factors influencing demand. So the first factor that will influence the demand is income of the people. If the income level of the people increases significantly, then their purchasing power will naturally improve. Suppose people will have a huge amount of money, then they will buy a lot of product from the firms or companies, or the market share will increase. And a converse situation will shift the demand curve to the southwest direction also, as we see in that. For instance, if we will take an example of television set, suppose a television set prices are lowered drastically in a sale of in an event, then its demand will naturally go up. As a result, the demand for an associated product, like some other television like DVDs or some other equipments like uh, cables and some insurance companies, will also increase. But over a period of time, people with a particular product may increase, but which in turn will affect its demand. For instance, diabetic people prefer to have sugar-free product. If the incidence of diabetics rising naturally, there will be increase in the demand of sugar-free product. So that's how we can say how the factors influence the demand. Coming to the other point, that is factors influencing the supply. So if the cost of the input increases, then naturally the cost of product will go up. In such a situation, prevailing price of product, the product margin per unit cell will be less. The producers will then produce the production quantity, which will in turn affect the supply of the product. Suppose the price of fertilizers and the cost of labors are increasing significantly in agriculture, then the margin per bag of the produced corn will be reduced. In that way, cost of input will affect the supply. And suppose there is an increase in some new technology that came up, then the that will also uh, affect the supply. Whether suppose there will be winters, and in demand of woolen products will increase during winters. This means the price of woolen goods will be increased in winter, so naturally manufacturer will supply more volume of woolen goods in the winter, and the price of the related goods has already explained in the previous demand curve will remain the same. Coming to the next thing, that will be economic, the concept, various other concepts in the engineering economics, coming starting with the economic efficiency. So economic efficiency is the ratio of output to input of a business system. That is a standard definition of efficiency, but in an business system, output will be treated as a annual revenue generated by way of operating the business, and cost is the total annual expense incurred in carrying out the business. So we can calculate the economic efficiency. For the survival growth of any business, the economic efficiency should be more than 100. Any company is working less than 100, like they are having more cost of the product than its selling price or some its basic worth, then it will always be doing a loss. Economic efficiency is also called a productivity. So let's move on to some other concept, that is how can we increase that uh, productivity. We can increase the productivity by increased output of the for the same input. If we will make the value of input constant, and we will increase the output, we are making more products from the same input, then the productivity will ultimately increase. And other way is decreasing the input for the same output. We are getting, suppose, 100 product with the 100 inputs. Now we are making a 100 product with the 80 inputs. We have decreased input, then the productivity will ultimately increase by proportionate increase in the output, which is more than that proportionate increase in the input. That will be like we have to we are simultaneously increasing the output and decreasing the input, and the proportionate decrease in the input, which is more than the proportionate decrease in the output. It's a similar thing. And other way is through simultaneous increase in the output with the decrease in input. These are all the same thing. The major points are here is that increasing the output, we have to increase the output and decrease the input. Now, what are the elements of cost? There are, broadly we can classify, there are two elements of cost. One is fixed cost, another is the variable cost. Variable cost can be further classified into direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. And the fixed cost can be subdivided by the factory overhead, administrative overhead, selling overhead, distribution, and the overhead, other kinds of overhead. Direct material costs are those costs of a material that are used to produce the product, and direct labor cost is amount of wages paid to the direct labor involved in the production activity. Now coming to the direct expenses, the direct expenses are those expenses that will vary in the relation to the production volume other than the direct material cost. Overhead cost is the aggregate of indirect material cost, indirect labor cost, and the indirect expenses. And the administrative overhead includes all the costs that are incurred in the administrative, like a company's CEO or some company's managers that will be paid. Selling overhead is to total expense that is uh, uh, incurred in the promotional activities like advertisement and some other activities, some CSR activities, etc. Distribution overhead is the total cost shipping the items from your factory to the customer. That is already included in the fixed cost. Now, what is the selling price? Selling price is the product price of the product is derived as shown below. Now we have to calculate the selling price, but before calculating the selling price, we have to calculate the direct material cost, direct labor cost, and direct expenses. That whole thing will be considered as a prime cost, and the prime cost will be added to the factory overhead, and that will be cost a factory cost. And factory cost, if we add to the office and administrative overhead, it's a cost of production. And now we have to finish it and pack it into some packaging, then the cost of production will be added, and opening finished cost, and we have to divide a closing finished stock, and the whole thing will be cost of a goods sold. Now any company have to transfer that things to the some distribution, and distribution overhead have to be added, and that if it that will be added to the goods sold, then we can say cost of sales will be like cost of goods sold plus selling and distribution overhead. And no one is going to make business in losses, so that will be some that there will be some profit, and we have to add this into the cost of sales, and that will be cost the overall thing will be called a sales. Now this is the price of a sales, this is the sales of a whole lot or the whole thing produced by a industry. We have to take into consideration a single product, then the single selling price of per unit will be sales divided by the quantities sold. Now there are some other costs also, like marginal cost, marginal revenue, sunk cost, and opportunity cost. I will explain you that in some further classes, or I will share you some books in which you can directly read what are these costs will be there. Now break even analysis, this is the one of the important analysis that needs to be done, like how much quantity is minimum have to company have to produce to work in a profit range. Suppose you have to make a pen, but you can't but you have to buy a whole machinery. For that you have to pay labor charges, you have to pay the overhead charges, you have to pay the land and fixed and variable both kind of charges. But there will be a scale of operation in you can operate. If you have to if you need a single pen, then you don't need to set up a factory, as factories need to set up for a particular scale of operation. And this is done by the break even analysis, and the main objective of break even analysis is to find the cut of production volume from where a firm will make a profit. Suppose S will be the selling price per unit, V is the variable cost per unit, FC is the fixed cost per unit, and Q is the volume of production. Now the total sales revenue of a firm is given by following formula, that is S will be equal to small s into quantity of, or we can say volume of the production, and the total cost of the firm is given by the production volume is given as total cost will be total variable cost plus total fixed cost. That will be variable cost, we can say that V into Q, and fixed cost is directly given. Now let's see this graph. The linear plots of the above two quantities are shown in figure 1.3. The intersection in these points is called the intersection of the total sales revenue and the total cost line is called a break even point. and the corresponding volume of production on the x-axis is known as the break-even sales quantity. At the intersection point, the total cost is equal to the total revenue, and at this point company will not make any profit, but simultaneously it will not make any loss. But they are producing any goods having quantity lower than that, then it will work in a loss, and if any quantity above than that point, it will started working in a profit. Now, how profits will be calculated? Profits can be calculated directly from the graph. As we can say, profit will be sales minus fixed cost plus variable cost. That we can also say the total cost. So if we will see, this is the price on the y-axis. We have a price, and from the x-axis we have a quantity. Then we can calculate the what is the profit. The profit will be sales minus total cost. Now coming to the break-even analysis formulas. So break-even quantities can be calculated as fixed cost minus upon selling cost per unit minus variable cost, as we can say also say FC divided by S minus V. And break-even sales will be like fixed cost divided by selling cost minus variable cost, and whole thing we have to multiply by selling price, because we are calculating the break-even sales. These are the quantities, these are the sales. The only thing is difference is selling price, we have to multiply. Also we can calculate the contribution. The contribution will be sales minus variable cost, and contribution per unit will be selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So this is the similar thing. Another thing we can calculate is the margin of safety. Margin of safety will be actual sales minus break even sales. Suppose company is making any good x quantity of goods in a profit range, that will be called its actual sales. And we can calculate also the break even sales that is needed. Now we can that the whole difference between the actual sales and the break even sales will be called as a margin of safety. And the margin of safety, if we will see in a percentage of sales, we can calculate the margin of safety sales into 100. Let's move with an example. So just give me a few minutes, I will share you some another screen, then we can solve this. Now you can see my screen. Yeah. So starting with the this thing will be already discussed. Now this is an example that is telling a company has a following details like fixed cost 20 lakhs rupees, variable cost 100 rupees per unit, selling cost 200 rupees per unit. Now we have to find the break even quantity of sales, the break even sales, that is Q, and that is QS. And if there is an actual production quantity is 60,000, then what is the contribution and what is the margin of safety by all methods? We can calculate the margin of safety with different methods. We have to calculate. So let's start here. Fixed cost is given as 20 lakhs. Variable cost is given as 100 rupees. Selling cost is 200 rupees. Now, from the formula of break even quantity, that is Q. The formula that we have studied is FC upon S minus V. We can calculate 20 lakhs divided by 200 minus 100. That will be 20,000 units. Now Q will be 20,000 units. That is our first answer. Okay. Second will be we have to calculate the break-even sales quantity. Break-even sales. That means what is the price that we get after selling this. That will be as a QS. It's similarly like S minus V into, now we have to multiply by sales. Then we can directly multiply by 20,000 into what is the selling price? Selling price is 20,000. Now that will be 40 lakh rupees. So after making 20,000 units from economic given quantity, we can, this is a break even sales, that at least we have to make a 40,000, 40 lakh rupees of sales to get a optimum range. Now coming to calculate the contribution. Contribution will be, before getting into the contribution, there is a thing that is already given, that is a actual production quantity. Now we have seen the break even quantity is 20,000 and company is making a actual quantity that is 60,000. Now contribution will be sales minus variable cost, and that will be S into Q minus V into Q. We have already we can calculate 200 into quantities are producing 60,000 minus variable cost is 100 rupees and quantities are 60,000. The whole thing will be give us a 60 lakh contribution will be 60 lakhs rupees. Now we have to calculate the margin of safety. MS. From we can calculate margin of safety from two methods. From method 1, we can directly calculate like MS will be MS will be sales minus break even sales. As we have calculated, sales is 1 crore 20 lakh minus break even sales is 40 lakhs rupees. Now we can say MS will be 80 lakhs. That is from the method 1. Now let's move on to the method 2. From another method, that is like MS will be profit divided by contribution into sales. Now we have to calculate the profit. What is the profit? Profit is sales minus total cost. Total cost will be sales will be 60,000 and selling cost will be 200 units. Then we can calculate the total cost will be fixed cost, that is 20 lakh rupees, plus variable cost, that is 100 into 60,000 units. And these all things will give us a 1 crore 20 lakh rupees minus that thing will be 20, that is 60,000 plus 20,000, 80,000 or 80 lakhs. And finally we will get a profit of 40 lakh rupees. From this formula, now we can directly calculate MS is equal to 40 lakh divided by contribution that we have calculated right now, that is 60 lakhs. Multiplied by sales. Sales will be 1 crore 20 lakhs. We can see that we can do, and that whole thing will be 80 lakhs. So we have seen that margin of safety are coming as a 80 lakhs rupees from the both the methods. Now let's move on to another topic, that is profit to volume ratio. And profit to volume ratio is a valid ratio which is useful for further analysis, and the difference formulas for profit to volume ratios are as follows. Profit to volume ratio we can calculate by contribution by sales, and contribution we have already calculated, that is sales minus variable cost divided by sales. So that is the relationship. Now we can maintain a relationship between break even point and the profit to volume ratio as follows. Break even point will be equal to fixed cost divided by the profit to volume ratio. Now the following formulas help us finding the margin of safety using the profit to volume ratio. The margin of safety will be equal to profit upon profit to volume ratio. So these are the formulas that we can calculate the PV ratios. Now we can take an example of that also. Like consider following data for a company for a year 2020. Like actual sales are of 1,20,000 rupees. Fixed costs are 25,000. And variable cost are 45,000. So now we have to calculate the contribution, profit, break-even point, and margin of safety. Just a minute. We will now we have to we can calculate this. So let's calculate it. Contribution will be sales minus variable cost, that is 1,20,000 minus 45,000 rupees, that will be that will occur as a 75,000 rupees. Now the other thing is profit. Profit is contribution minus fixed cost. Fixed cost is already given 25,000. We can calculate the profit, that is 50,000 rupees. Now break even point. Will be calculated from the PV ratio. Here other things are not given, so we can calculate the PV ratio. PV ratio is contribution upon sales. Now 75,000 divided by 1,20,000, that will be 62.50%. So that is the profit to volume ratio. Now from this profit to volume ratio we can calculate break even point. Break even point will be fixed cost upon PV ratio. So 25,000. Now PV ratio we have to take into consideration as a 0.6250 because it is in the percentage. 0.6250, and then it will be occur as 40,000. And margin of safety in the similar way we can calculate profit upon PV ratio. That will be 50,000 divided by 0.6250. The whole thing will be a 80,000 rupees. So now we have seen two methods, that is one is break-even analysis and the second is PV analysis, profit to volume ratio. Now let me revise once what we have done today. We have started with the aim and objective of this course. Here we have learned what is the need of that project, why we have to understand this, what's it necessary. Then in a similar manner we have defined what is engineering economics and what's its definition. Then we have understood the flow in engineering economics, that is we have two stakeholders, one is business and the other household, and this is the flow chart that I've shown. Then we have learned the law of supply and demand curve. Now the other thing that we have covered is the different concepts in the engineering economics, that we have learned economic efficiency, how can we improve the productivity, elements of cost, we have understand the variable cost, fixed cost, and what are the major factors that can affect the cost. What is the selling price, how can we calculate the selling price, and some other costs. We have understand the more concept. One of them is break even analysis. Now we can calculate the break even analysis for any firm that is given. And the formulas of variable cost. We have done an example of a variable cost where we have calculated the break even sales, break even point, and break even sales price, and contribution and the margin of safety with the different methods. Also, after that, we have studied the profit to volume ratio that is occurred as a profit to volume ratio, and how can we define a relationship between the break even point and the profit to volume ratio. Also, we have done an example of profit to volume ratio within. Now, these are the reference books that you can get from your library, or you can also get online these books. You can find it. And if you want to study some more concepts of engineering economics, then you can refer them. And these are the standard books of engineering economics. And thank you. Then in the next lecture, we will study some more concepts, and we will cover the what are the things that will are going to help us in the time value of money and the depreciation of money.